Arthur's world was silent. A small apartment, the constant hum of the refrigerator, and the rhythmic click of his keyboard were the soundtrack to his existence. Loneliness wasn't a visitor, it was a permanent resident, a shadow that stretched across his days and nights. He worked as a freelancer, translating technical documents, a job that isolated him further. His only friends were the characters in the books he read and the anonymous voices on the online forums he frequented. Until the first text arrived. It was from a blocked number, no caller ID. Just 6 words and a time. Gas leak, Eastwood and 5th, 10:32 a.m. Arthur glanced at the clock. It was 9:15 a.m. He dismissed it as a prank, some bizarre spam. He ignored it and continued to work. Yet the message lingered in his mind, a nagging echo. At lunchtime, he turned on the news out of habit. The headline froze him. An explosion due to a gas leak at the corner of Eastwood and 5th. 2 people injured, but no fatalities thanks to an anonymous tip that evacuated the building moments before. The time of the incident, 10:32 a.m. Arthur's blood ran cold. It was a coincidence. It had to be. But 2 days later, another message came. Fire at the public library, West Wing, 3:47 p.m. Arthur's heart hammered against his ribs. This couldn't be real. But the thought of the people injured in the explosion haunted him. Trembling, he picked up his phone, dialed the fire department, and in a choked voice reported a smell of smoke at the library, refusing to give his name. At 3:50 p.m., the local news reported a small electrical fire in the library's west wing, contained quickly by firefighters who, by luck, were already on site due to a call. No one was hurt. Arthur felt a rush of relief and power he had never experienced. He had made a difference. The messages continued. A multi-car pileup on the city bridge, scaffolding about to collapse at a construction site, a child who would fall into a park lake. With each text, Arthur acted. He became an invisible guardian angel, an anonymous whisper that staved off tragedy. His lonely life gained a purpose. The monotony was replaced by a constant adrenaline, a sense of importance that filled the void inside him. He was no longer the invisible man. He was a secret hero. The papers dubbed him the Prophet of Westgate. The police were intrigued but grateful. Arthur read the articles about himself with a sick pride, a thrilling secret that was all his own. The euphoria, however, began to curdle into a growing dread. The messages became more intimate, more specific. Neighbor in 3B's dog will run into the street, 6:12 p.m. Arthur rushed down and found his neighbor's gate ajar, catching the golden retriever just before it reached traffic. Allergic reaction, peanuts, coworker, Sarah, 12:30 p.m. He accidentally knocked Sarah's lunch off her desk at the co-working space he visited once a week, moments before she took the first bite. She was furious, but he knew he'd saved her life. How did the sender know these things? How did they know his neighbors, his colleagues? He felt watched, a pawn in a game whose rules he didn't understand. Paranoia began to set in. He covered his laptop's camera. He checked his locks 3 times before bed. Every notification on his phone made him jump. He tried replying to the messages, calling the number, but it was a dead end. The sender was a digital ghost. Then the predictions grew darker. Armed mugging, alley behind the market, 9 p.m. Arthur called the police, his voice shaking. He heard the sirens in the distance, imagining the terror he had prevented. The sense of power was now laced with an icy dread. He was no longer just preventing accidents, he was intervening in acts of human evil. The weight of it was crushing him. He barely ate, barely slept. His life was a tense wait for the next message, the next disaster. He longed for the silence from before, but the responsibility chained him to this cycle of fear and heroism. One evening, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He picked it up with sweaty hands. The message was short, and every word hit him like a physical blow. It was his own address, a time, midnight, and a single word, you. Panic seized him. It was a threat. The sender, his secret guide, was coming for him. Why? Did he know too much? Was this a punishment? He bolted the door, shoved a dresser against it. He turned off all the lights and hid in the darkest corner of his apartment, clutching a fireplace poker. The clock ticked by, each second a hammer blow to his nerves. 11:59, midnight. Silence. Nothing happened. No knock on the door, no shattering glass. He waited for an hour, body tense, before he dared to move. Confused and exhausted, he crept to his phone. That's when a new notification appeared. It wasn't a text. It was a video file. With his heart in his throat, he opened it. The image was grainy, from a security camera. It showed the corner of Eastwood and 5th, days before the explosion. He saw a figure approach a gas main on the side of a building. The figure wore a hood, but when they turned into the light, Arthur screamed. It was him. The video switched. The library. Him again, flicking a lit cigarette into a trash can full of paper near some exposed wiring. The bridge. Him, scattering a box of steel ball bearings across the slick pavement. The park. Him, leaving the playground gate unlatched, knowing the curious toddler would wander out. The neighbor's gate. The peanuts in Sarah's salad. The dark alley where he predicted the mugging, which was actually him, waiting in the shadows. It was all him. In a fugue state, a sleepwalking haze of which he had no memory. He wasn't predicting tragedies. He was creating them. His subconscious, the dark, lonely part of him that craved attention and purpose, was orchestrating everything. And then it sent the messages to his other conscious half so he could become the hero he so desperately wanted to be. He was the arsonist and the firefighter, the monster and the savior. The phone vibrated one last time in his trembling hand. A new text message from the same blocked number. This time, it wasn't a prediction. Now you know. Arthur stared at his reflection in the phone's dark screen. The face staring back was a stranger's, a ghost haunted by crimes he didn't know he'd committed. The silence in his apartment returned, but it was different now. It was no longer empty. It was full of himself. This story was a presentation from Shadow Tales.